It is Tech Tuesday month. And more importantly, Tech Tuesday month in a changing market. Lee Woodward, how are you?
Tom, I am absolutely amazing. The change of market is here. Very, very true. And it's amazing how fast the change of market has impacted people on what will I do? What should I do? And I think today is such a great time to discuss this topic. And I know it's a technology Tuesday, but your own wiring in your brain's tech as well. And if we know how to use the tech around us and pull this together, I think some agents will prefer this changing market, but we all fear it's gone, it's this, and suddenly we've got to get our own conversation right.
So Lee, you're out and about and you've got a big real estate community, and Realtor is highly immersed into the businesses of real estate agents. So you've got a lot of touch points. Are we seeing this change, Lee, now happening? Sydney and Melbourne has been happening more than other parts of Australia. What's the feedback you're getting, Lee, outside of Sydney and Melbourne?
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of regional. We have a lot of great clientele through there. A place close to your own heart, Tom, Byron Bay and Brunswick Heads. I was up there the other day working, and it was amazing. There's been no property available there. And suddenly there is stock, but the stock isn't new listings. It's the unsold stock of the area that didn't reach that pricing thinking. And then there's a whole conversation around that pricing. Has it dropped? No, it's stabilized. There's a difference in a drop and a stabilization. And Tom, you've been mentioning that wonderful term from nuts to normal. And, you know, we're seeing that, but today the agents should, and it's one of my first points to bring up is, you know, get your own conversation right, because you're about to speak to a lot of people, but don't let the market get to you as well. The media's already, oh, the interest rates are going up. They can't go down. You know, how low can they be? Oh, they're going to go up 4 times. Well, they usually go up 0.5 at a time. So there's 1%. It's less than your coffee bill a year. We just got to be careful we're not on the same spin as the media. When, you know, when somebody wants to move, Tom, they want to move. They didn't say, oh, but the election and the interest rates. No, I need a different home for a different reason for myself, my family, what we're doing. And sometimes we just got to keep this simple and focus on the real reason why somebody wants to move. I know myself, if I've got, every time I've ever sold a property, it was irrelevant of what's going on in the spin and the noise. I'm doing it because I need to do it. And I think we've got to not get in that hype conversation and stick to the real conversation.
So Lee, that's very well said, because I think at the moment, I'm noticing that there is a lot of agents that are beginning to participate in this mental pandemic. It was really interesting, like during the whole time COVID pandemic, right? You know, agents moving full busters, many of them had their best years of their life. And now it appears that they're appearing in the mental pandemic. But you raise a very good point. And I see it in my auction business. Nearly every vendor that I actually do an auction for is not doing it to make money like they're making money out of the share market. They're doing it because they're getting divorced, they're changing schools, they want a bigger home, they're moving into another part of the world, they've got some underlying reason, a baby being born, right? And this is excitingly because it basically says, regardless of any market, if you are someone that can list property, market it, adjust it, and you do have to adjust it in this market, sell property, you can make a living, and a good living, in any market, Lee. It's not the stock market. They're not doing it to make money.
Yeah, do you know, Tom, when I first came into real estate, I was 22. And a bizarre comment, it's what I didn't know that allowed me to do what I did. And I want to say I was perfectly thick. I don't follow politics. I don't understand booms and crashes, but I met a lot of mums and dads and a lot of young people in apartments who were moving for reasons. And I never got into these conversations after the election, but it's Easter, Christmas is coming up. There's always something coming up versus why have you chosen now to move? And when would you like to be there? And in that time frame, if we're cheeky on price, it can take a while. If you let me know when you'd like to be out of here, I'll price the property accordingly, but price does equal time. And as soon as they understand that, And then one of my favorites that I always talk about when I get my chance to communicate with the community is the golden rule of real estate is the longer your property's on the market, the less the purchaser expects to pay. And that will never, ever, ever change. And that would be the greatest banner realestate.com could ever put on a highway. The longer your property's on the market, the less people expect to pay. So in a time when the vendors are saying right now, no, hold, we're just going to stay here until we get our price, you've got to know how to have those conversations, because the owner's not being unrealistic. They don't know what they don't know. And it's our job to provide that guidance, provide that information so they can make a logical decision. You know, it's like that favorite line of, you know, someone says, Tom, I'm going to not doing anything. I'm going to stay here and wait for it to go up. Right. But don't you want to move to Queensland and be with your grandchildren? That's why you were moving. Yeah. Well, why would you stay in a house where you don't want to be when you could move to a house where you want to be and wait for that one to go up? Like real estate goes up. Right now, the cycle's been a long period of time. You don't want to wait the next cycle. This could you afford not to go up there now? And as soon as you get in a personal conversation about it versus an outside, none of us can control the election, the interest rates. You've got to focus on what you can assist in. And that's where these points today, Tom, the 5 points we're bringing up, will be good alignment for an agent to have a bit of a tune-up.
Okay. So, Lee, let's move into them. I mean, you've been good enough to actually even create some slides that we can reference as we're going through. So the topic, everyone that's watching on Facebook, those that are watching on Zoom through the link, the topic is, of course, 5 things that you can be doing in a changing market with a digital theme and focus to it. So, Lee, let's move on to the first thing that agents can be doing in a changing market.
Okay. Tom, as you know, there's only 4 chapters to this masterclass of real estate. That's why we don't have to go to university. We just got many, many hours of studying it. But every one of us have got find, list, communicate, and sell. That's just how the sales cycle works. But what sits around that, and going to be my first point here, is shift your extended conversation. Tom, as a real estate professional, when you hit the phones, you can just hit the phones and wing it, or you can actually think about what you're going to say and have an extended conversation. And I think having an extended conversation, you want to bring up the change in market. You want to be that person who's on the front foot. You want to talk about, well, the interest rates can't go down. And suddenly you can get off that phone call and that extended conversation, and people are like, I really enjoyed speaking to that person. And you know what? I still want to move. And they sounded a bit different to everybody else. Everyone's whinging about what's going on. And real estate's simple. You're either whinging or you're winning. But you choose that thought. And I think this one here, the number 1, shift your extended conversation, is a really important point, because if you're not right, you're not going to affect somebody else. They'll just be an extension of, you know, it's all going downhill. I don't know what to do. Quick story, Tom. I was walking through Brunswick Heads the other day, and our son and his fiance were there with us, and they said, oh, Lee, not many houses come up here. They very rarely come up. I said, you know what? Every one of these houses are coming up for sale one day. Every one of them's going to sell. And you look at that too, oh, not much comes available. Everyone's got to move sometime. Every one of these houses is going to be sold. So as you walk through a street, you can see it. It's everywhere, but you've got to, it's that positive belief in what could happen. Everyone moves for a reason, and you'd be surprised who moves when you don't think they're going to move. So that was number 1, Tom.
Yeah, very good. I'll just extend on that extended conversation, Lee. By the way, everyone, what you should be doing if you are an agent in Brunswick Heads, your son's not an agent, I presume, Lee, is it?
No, not at all.
If you are an agent in Brunswick Heads, the best thing you could do is make sure that every one of those houses, every house in Brunswick Heads, is getting a realtor pitch price update, right? That's the beginning of the journey, right? If they're getting a price update, I've had a number of, even the client that I'm doing work with tomorrow, they've actually given me a brief to say, just keep reiterating, we've got to make sure we're getting these quarterly price updates out there, right? That would be the first thing. But the second thing I want to add to there, Lee, it's really interesting, because I think when you do extend the conversation, like you said, like I think right now, all of a sudden, for the first time in 2 years, you have to be a real estate agent again. You didn't have to be a real estate agent for the last 2 years, but all of a sudden you are going to have a vendor that's going to say, hey, I want to, to move to this part of the world and I'll wait till I get my price. And you've got to have the ability to say, what do you think you're going to do? Are you going to put a lay-by on the place you want to go so you can secure it? Like, lay-by, remember lay-by at Best and Less or wherever. And then what will happen is yours will go up, but you've actually secured that one at a low price. It doesn't work that way. And I think, Lee, the way you articulated it, and you can explain to people, it's very simple. Financially, you're going to be in the same position in 3 years or now, because your changeover figure will be the same. Sell high, buy high, sell low, buy low, sell medium, buy medium. The real question is, do you want to make a decision for your family based on the market or based on your life? And if you feel like moving now, do it now. Why suffer for another 3 years, So I think, Lee, our big lesson to our agents, go pro, dig deeper, extend the conversation. Let's move on to number 2, Lee.
Okay. Number 2, reach out to all the completed appraisals and discuss the change in market. Tom, we talk about having a reasons to call list versus I'm ringing you to say, hi, how are you? I'm touching bases. Do you want your base touched? And they're like, leave me alone. Versus if I reach out with a good reason to call. Hi, Tom, Lee from such and such real estate, just reaching out to discuss the change in market with you. I know we did an assessment on your own home 2 months ago. A lot's happened in the market. And I just thought I'd reach out to see if you want to discuss what's happening and let you know what's going on in the marketplace. That's a great reason to ring someone.
Yeah.
But why wouldn't you reach out about the changing market? Yeah. One thing we do as an industry is we don't like discussing what's possibly seen as negative. Everything's perfect. Everything's great. Everything's going good. And if you look at your clients that are going up market, it's a better time for them to move now. They will save money because the upper market has stabilized far more than the market they're in. So that's when you bring about that question, Tom, I don't think you can afford not to move right now. When you told me you were looking for a 4-bedroom brick and tile home with a double garage and a pool, the stabilization has worked in your favor. You're going to have a lesser mortgage here in the changeover costs, but it's very easy to think your stabilized price from the out of control pricing we saw, and Tom, it had to stabilize. Markets just can't keep climbing that fast. And the next cycle could be a couple of years. We don't know that. No one knows. But Tom, there's some great reasons why you should still consider that move. And I also think you're not getting the competition. You and I spoke about a few properties back then and you loved it, but it sold. You loved it and it sold. A few of those are allowing you to breathe now and they hang around a bit longer. How about can we put this together for you?
So Lee, agents are always looking for reasons to make phone calls, right? Reasons to make phone calls, right? And one of the reasons I think, Lee, people don't make calls is they don't know what to say and they don't know who to call. But you've just summed up very well. There's a bunch of people there in your pipeline. And Lee, one of the advantages of in a marketplace that's got raising interest rates, a really good call to make to owners is to say, hey, listen, I want to let you know. I know you're not thinking of selling right now, but we've got a lot of our smart clients who have fast-tracked their plans. And the reason why is that buyers are being re-rated as interest rates go up. So this buyer that might have 800 as an approved mortgage today, man, in 3 months' time with 3 interest rate increases, they may have an approved mortgage, which is a lot less, which means they'll offer you less. So buyers are being re-rated. I think the point that you're making, Lee, is you've got a reason to call, markets change, take advantage and run to the fire. Don't become invisible. I think people want an agent that makes a ruckus at the moment. They want an agent that's sort of out there, that's in their face. So that's a fantastic call to make, Lee. Tell people the change in market.
And, when they say, oh, but Lee, things aren't selling like they were. Well, we've had some amazing results. All the good properties are still attracting good people. And if I can get a mum and dad to walk through here and fall in love with it, they don't care about the interest rates. They don't care about the election. They're looking for their place. And if yours is that place, you put the right property in front of the right people, they'll move heaven and earth to buy it. That never changes. Now, do we have 30 other people hanging around your lawn that don't really want to move? No, they're not there. But that's a good thing. Our job's to keep people out as well as in. We're only looking for one. But if the real, anyone out there right now searching for a property has a real reason to purchase. Those that were speculating, 100 people on the lawn, only 2 people, 3 people bidding, those 2, 3 have a real reason, and we still need one. And I think it's those conversations that bring such clarity to the agent I want to work with. And Tom, there's another part of this. I've been through ups and downs of markets as a real estate salesperson. And actually, I was speaking to Jason Byrne about this the other day. I said, Jason, this is the best time for you. You're about to have a very different conversation where someone says, I don't care if I have to pay you 3%, just sell it. And versus, doesn't matter who I go with, they're all selling fast. What about when you need some talent on board? What about when you need someone who's going to get them back to the property and buyer management for the 3rd, 4th time? Because they don't just walk through and fight over it. But a brilliant agent knows how to bring deals together and they get paid appropriately. And the fact you've got a self-filter on the marketplace right now that there's not as many people looking, so I don't have to deal with all the people that aren't sure, but the ones I've got, you put the right buyer in front of the right agent, magic happens, but you've got to know how to convey that to the consumer that your skill set is what will get it sold, not the heat or low of the market. Let me get out there and find someone who's a good match for your property.
Yeah, and I think, Lee, that's another opportunity in this market, isn't it? Like looking at improving your commission. If you've been upset with what you've been charging and you've been concerned and hesitant to actually increase your fees because you're going to miss listings, this is probably the best environment to be doing it.
Yeah, and it brings back that great dialogue. How's the market? We're working twice as hard as we did for the result, but we're getting the result. But you're leading to, we wouldn't be able to take it on at that level with no marketing. We need all the tools of trade we can and everyone committed. So you are, it's not even increasing fees. Maybe you'll be paid appropriately for the work you're doing. And I battle with this, Tom, where agents say, sold at first day, full price off market. It was easy. Why do we send those signals? It's not bloody easy at all. We work hard as an industry. And it's like when someone says, oh, Lee, that result you got up in the corner, that was amazing. Yeah, Tom, bit of a fake read, that one. The price ended up really good. But when the purchaser engaged, they were willing to pay the price, but the bank couldn't see the valuation. It took us 2 weeks to put our own valuation pack together and give proof points and evidence of why the property is worth that. And we got it through. But if it didn't, the next purchaser was a lot lower. So it's a bit of a fake read, that one. Versus, yeah, it's easy. We've got to be so careful with these signals we send, especially in a change market, that it's not simple. It takes a lot of, the agents got to super glue themselves to the sale, dedicate themselves and get paid appropriately for that hard work.
Beautiful. So Lee, let's move on to point number 3. And in the process, if you don't mind, Lee McCarthy's just said, if you could quickly just bring up slide 1 that you used, because she missed it. So if we can, in that process, bring it up, or bring it up there. So that's slide 1, sell, find, list, communicate. That is the poster slide of Lee Woodward. Actually, I've seen that slide. Yeah.
It's funny, isn't it? Like the word prospecting, Tom, I just can't stand. Yeah. But you got to find business for future business. And list, we get it, but it's winning business. Vendor management, you got to communicate. And then buyer management, you got to sell it. So find, list, communicate, and sell just breaks the complex into the simplicity. And for those that missed it, that was slide 1. Shift your extended conversation. Reach out to all completed appraisals and discuss the change in market. I love that phone call. And then number 3. Tom, number 3 is...
these slides in the show notes?
Sorry, Susan?
Can we send out these slides in the show notes and with a recording?
We certainly can.
Awesome.
Number 3, fall back in love with the buyers. Know their life stories. The older the lead, the better. Tom, I'm in a building right now that I bought when I wasn't looking to buy. And this story is so important about placing deals together. When a purchaser makes an inquiry on a property, they'll go out and they'll look, and then quite often they'll say, oh, you know what, they sold a bit fast, we're going to put it on the back burner. Now, if you went back through your buy list from a year ago, 2 years ago. And if they're a buyer seller, even better. And you got on the phone and you say, Tom, it's Lee from ABC Real Estate. We spoke in February 2021. Did you end up moving, Tom?
Not yet.
So, Tom, you're still in the same place where you were?
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, Tom, back then, I was looking for a 4-bedroom brick and tile home, double garage with an in-ground pool. The ones we saw, there was a lot of heat in the market. They sold very fast. I've actually just had another one come available, and the owners just finished their preparation. It's not been to the portals yet, but there is a window of opportunity I can get you through that, Tom. Would you be open to having a look through it?
Yeah, we'll have a look at it. We'll have a look at it.
And this is what happened to me here, right? I got a phone call for a commercial building, and they said, Lee, you should come look at this building. I said, but I'm not looking for a building. They said, yeah, but where you are, the internet's too slow, the team's growing, you should come and have a look at this. And I went, yeah, all right. So I came out. I'm now the owner of this building. I bet you, Tom, if I was actually looking, there was a better building available at that time. But because I wasn't looking, I looked at one and it fitted, and it was like, stuff it, I'll do it. And it's what you call a direct hit sale. When someone's active in the market looking at 30, there'll be a better one than yours. When they're not looking and you say, I've got this for you, come out and have a look at it, they're like, this is amazing. And it's the older the lead, the better, because they're not actively looking in the marketplace, but that's where some of the hidden sales are.
Okay, Lee, that's absolutely gold. And in a marketplace where most of the industry has been worked. What's interesting is, Lee, first interest rate rise in 12 years, yet most of the real estate industry has been working in real estate than less than 12 years. So they've always worked in an environment that it's been low or dropping rates. Now, Lee, there are real estate agents that are sitting there saying, but Tommy, we put the ads on realestate.com, 2 people coming through the opens. People have forgotten the art of buyer management. People have forgotten the art of actually making appointments with buyers. And what you've just said there, I mean, I've got to tell you, I think, Lee, a lot of people buy properties because the agent's got such a high level of energy and conviction in the property. It gets transferred to the next person. It's not like they're sitting down and they're going to go look at 10 other properties. And that's where a sale is happening in an instant, this emotion. And I think buyer management, you've got to stick to buyers like a stamp sticks on an envelope at the moment, Lee. Forgotten art. Yeah.
Do you know, Tom, one of the first things I learned about selling was the open for inspections were an exhibition for people that were checking out the property. But your appointments in a week, especially anyone who'll come out midweek when it's hard, you've got to take some time off work to come and see a property, or could you come and see me early Saturday morning? And I'll get you through that particular property. And you started to see the peaks of your week. But the buyers who would commit to an appointment were absolutely the gold. But after 4 or 5 appointments, you learn their life story, which is what that whole point is. You got to learn their life stories. And they'll say, oh, Lee, we're in a unit right now. My nan's in a unit. We want to sell both units, right? And come together in a double family opportunity, which means we're upstairs, she's downstairs, community living, but we're just finding it hard to find one. You say, look, I can help you. I know properties like that we've appraised in the past. They haven't come on the market. But if I was to reach out to them and say, is there a chance you consider releasing that big double 2-story home in Westminster Avenue for a family that's looking for that opportunity, you'll probably get above the normal market rate for it because it's a unique opportunity. Would you consider it? And that owner would go, that sounds all right. Isn't the market all this at the moment? When you've got a specific need to buy, you don't care what's going on. And these 2 families, we promised we'd reach out to anyone we knew with a home of that volume and size that could be divided. And yours is perfect for it. And explaining the ideal buyer candidate profile to a seller is amazing, because it's like you've got a direct hit again. And you'd actually start stitching these deals together because no one's coming to the open. We don't have one. I remember walking in the office one day and saying to our wonderful receptionist, have they fixed the phones yet? She goes, the phones aren't broken. Right. Well, they haven't rung at all. So, and you're there worried, like no one's ringing, no one's coming through. So you got to pick up the phone and start ringing the buyer from 2 years ago. But that key question, are you still living where you were? Yeah, no, it was all too hard. We didn't do anything. And one good thing about buyers is the original itch for moving never goes. and you can get into a conversation with them. And quite often for me, Tom, they wouldn't get 3 or 4 in against you. They'd just be like, "No, you've been good to us. We'll stick with you. And you're going to help us on the other side." And you actually realize what being a professional real estate salesperson is. It's not facilitating inquiry. It's getting amongst people's lives and assisting in that moving process. And the moving process, all we do for a job is help people move, but you've got to know their story. They're not just an inquiry and a price. And it's amazing how many buyers back then would say, "Lee, we're going to wait and buy something off you." That was the best honor of all, because they were sick of looking in the market, and then can actually go back to all the appraisals or door spotting, where you start driving around streets going, "There's one I could target. I'll go and knock on that one. I've got this family. They're trying to do this. I know it's a long shot, but would you consider releasing the asset if you didn't have to go live to the marketplace straight away? We could get someone who matches." So, but falling in love with your buyers is what really brings that together.
Love it. Love it. Lee, let's move on to number 4.
Number 4. I love number 4. Work on client re-engagement. Now, this sounds really simple, but it's not. The entire real estate industry at some point will say, "I'm short of stock, I'm short of listings," and so forth. And you're like me, Tom, you do an analysis of that and ask some questions. Have you got all your established clients on a price update? No. All your past appraisals that you reached out to for the change of market talk, did you get them on a price update? Your buyer sellers? No, I didn't. Okay, well, that may help. But also, what is your client re-engagement sequence? And they go, "What do you mean?" Well, you can't just send them a Christmas card and a letter on anniversary. You got to have a client re-engagement program. And Tom, there's an interview we just did with this lady. And let me bring up the slide. There was a real estate hot topics we did here called Finding Alignment with Bev and Rosie. And Bev was explaining to me her established client sequence. Now, what people don't know about Bev, she works in that Terrigal market. Terrigal, not terrible, Terrigal. So every day she's up against the Matt Steinway and Trevor Hamilton show. Tough gig. Like people talk about tough competition, going up against Matt and Trevor, who are industry masterclass ninjas of the area and doing some of the greatest results we've seen. So for Bev, it's like, okay, I can only be me, but I can follow a sequence that will get you there. And for client re-engagement, Bev was at a conference that I did once, and I spoke about Nicole Carter from Queensland, who had this great little sequence. In her Outlook, she had all her settlements. So they're still in the database, Tom, but if you want to gain visibility, have your settlements in your Outlook as reoccurring events. And Nicole said to me, "Lee, every day I look at tomorrow and I go, I've got 3 settlements for tomorrow. And in the afternoon, I go up to the home and I drop off a candle, and the candle's beautiful. It's got all my details on it, and it should last a year if you don't burn it too much. And I knock on the door and say, congratulations, it's 3 years now since you moved in. There's my gift. If you need anything, give me a call." And she runs. Now, the purpose of dropping off the candle, Tom, is number 1, do they still live there? Because I've had people doing price updates out to their established clients to get text back saying, "We don't live there anymore. We sold 3 years ago." And they're like, "Oh, I can't believe it." Yeah, you had no engagement. Client re-engagement is a technique. Anyway, the wonderful Bev listened to that, went out to all her settlements, did the gift, and then she's done an appraisal. She drops that off, making sure she's eyeball to eyeball. And, you know, Bev's what, 4 or 5 years in real estate, single mum, just cracked $1 million in fees, but she's nailed the digital price update and that settlement sequence or that client re-engagement sequence. So I think right now in this change of market, reach out to your established clients, check if they're there. And a lot of you are going to be shocked. Usually the other shock we get is we drive down a street, we see someone else's signboard and one of our established clients, we pull over the car or nearly crash the car because we can't believe it that we're going to name kids after us. And suddenly it's got a competitor signboard on it. And no matter who you are, people move fast. And they don't always go back and think, "Oh, my original agent." They go, "No, I saw an open house the other day. I spoke to this bloke and I put him straight on it," which means real estate means you don't have to be good. You have to be there. And your client re-engagement is a chance to be there. but reach out and find out this number. How many established clients have you got? Because a lot of people don't know that number, Tom, and it's a very, very important one. But if people want that interview, I thought I'd give you a gift on that today.
Thank you.
If you text the word Bev to 0429 272 009, that will shoot you back her interview. And it's so refreshing, Tom, to see a brilliant young female out there following a data sequence and getting that result. And it just works out amazing. And for our New Zealand subscribers and listeners, you may not get the text back, but Susan will text that back to herself and get that link to you. Tom, back to you.
Yeah, and I'll say, Lee, I've got to tell you, and I sometimes do it. I should have stayed in contact with certain clients over the years, and you just, for lots of reasons. And I find, Lee, that sometimes it's that first reach out that's the most difficult afterwards. And just to share with our audience a bit of a script hack, if you'd like, works for me. A lot of agents tell me it's worked for them, and that is you reach out and say, hey, Lee, it's Tom here. Firstly, I want to apologize. I should have been in touch earlier. Saying that automatically, you're sort of saying, I'm wrong here, right? I'm sorry. Sorry is a very hard thing for many people to actually say, right? Automatically sort of that person says, oh, well, that's refreshing. Lee, totally concur. Now is the time to reach out. Now is the time to reconnect. And most importantly, I think is important because one of the purposes of reach outs is to cleanse that database, because not only have you got people, I mean, there are people that are probably passed away, Lee, that are receiving communication. It's really good to know like who's where and who's who in the zoo in that CRM system,
Tom, that's the true term, past client.
Yes.
That's why I use the word established client. They're here, they're kicking, they're alive. That's a door of yours you need to claim. But so many of our doors, and I'll tell you a quick story. In the last 12 months, there's people that have sold their property who bought it in the last 12 months and have moved, and the agents missed it. And in this new world that we live in, where everything's so uncertain, people can do whatever they like. And because the pricing was so strong, they weren't losing. Some of them even gained money in that time. But people have worked out, I'm in Melbourne, I've moved to Brunswick Heads, and it's not what I thought it was. When I was here on holiday, it was very different. And suddenly, I'm not sure about the coffee, I'm going back. And there's been a lot of fast moves going on in the country, and don't underestimate that. I bought a very small motorhome, Tom, and as you know, we love going up to Byron. And I'd only had it 9 months, and they wrote to me saying, would you sell it? I'm thinking, I don't know. I've only had it 9 months, but the fact they were writing to me within 9 months, because I had such a demand with the chaos going on in the motorhome world, I just thought that was a really good reach out. Yet most people think, oh, there's no point contacting them. They only bought it a year ago. I wouldn't assume anything right now. I think everything's open, everything's on the table. You don't know why people would move and what opportunities are out there for them.
Yeah, I think COVID clarity has changed the game. People, it's no longer we're selling in 2029. The kids are finishing the HSC. COVID clarity has taught us to be fast, to be nimble, to understand that uncertainty happens in an instant, and you've got the power and decision to actually make things in an instant. I mean, divorces, sea changes, tree changes, sea changes and tree changes that are being reversed back into city changes, right? All that sort of stuff, Lee, pretty much what you're saying. If they've got a pulse rate, they're vertical, and they own real estate in your area, they're a prospect.
Very much so. And
last one, Lee.
Okay.
Number 5, is it?
We are up to 5. Let me just click that onto 5. Sorry to do that while we're live, but I will do it. Okay. This one's really interesting, Tom. Take the time to study the digital sale and deposit. One thing that happened during COVID was the industry got caught off guard. You weren't allowed to show properties. We weren't allowed to do on-the-lawn auctions. And, we had like 10,000 people on the live digital platform buying and transacting real estate. And it was like a wobble. It was like, how many people have just had to go digital? But but good example of, okay, I'm not allowed to go to the opens, I'm not allowed to go to a live auction, but I still need to move. So our consumer found another way to transact real estate. We didn't know they were going to fall in love with it. That was interesting. So at the moment, agents are thinking, oh, well, all that's calmed down, the market's stabilized, back to the way it was. What a crazy time. If you could see the benefit right now of studying the digital sale. And Tom, we all have to study. Prior to you coming on air, Tom, I was chatting with your wonderful Susan about being your own mechanic. And for those that haven't seen where I am today, this is the studio. Now, in here, Tom, just like you, we used to have a cameraman, a sound guy, click, we're on. No one can afford that anymore. So I had to learn all this stuff, just like you, know your tech and become your own mechanic. And the digital sale is that. So the price update is our digital prospecting. The digital introduction is our first way of setting up the scene for the listing conversation, then our proposal. Then we sign the digital agreement. But now there's agents out there right now, Tom, who are doing the digital exchange of contracts in Sign. That's the source of truth. That then does the sales advice and all the correspondence instantaneously. But the new one that everyone's raving about is deposit. So quite often on auction day, as you know from last time you were chatting with Pete, how do I pay the deposit? I've only got a 10 grand limit. So we're now shooting a link out to the purchaser. They put their own BSB and account number in. And then we're not governed by that 10,000. We might move 100 and they may nominate different accounts. But that digital sale, putting the funds straight into the bank account, is being done by the agent in collaboration with the purchasing community. And actually Pete's touring at the moment. He's in Dubbo today on behalf of REI. And he's talking about fraud. There was so much fraud cases in our Australian real estate industry last year where you're not allowed to send me your bank details for the deposit, and I'm not allowed to give you our bank account trust account details via email because they could be hacked. So I'd like you to call me, I'll confirm it, and then we'll do it. Even that, Tom, if you're saving stuff to your servers in the office, you are still possible to be hacked because it's not a closed system. And Pete was telling me about some of the incredible fines out there, and our industry's been out of date. And I think right now, learning the digital sale makes you a modern agent of the future, progresses you on, but you might have some time to do that. And how do you do it? Ring the Realtor Academy, get a demonstration on it, and don't even demo it to think, oh, I'm meant to be buying something. No, learn the digital sale. So when an owner says, why would I go with you or somebody else? Well, I've just finished some other work. And if it was Saturday and be it for sale auction, timed auction, I can actually take the full deposit from the purchaser, from their bank account, straight into our trust account. So we secure that person, because if they go back into the marketplace and they're going to do it in a week's time, there's that many prices being reduced around us, we could lose the purchaser. And everyone loses a great purchaser when the competing house gets dropped $80,000 and yours doesn't look that good anymore. We could have closed them up on that Saturday and you put it off to say, oh, we'll do it in the lawyers in the next 6 days. That's a long period of time, Tom. And I think learning the digital sale right now would be right on your radar to become your own mechanic and control your real estate career.
Yeah, and Lee, on the way to where I am here right now, I was on the phone call to Tanae Jane, who won the REI Agent of the Year award that you guys sponsored.
I gave him the award. I was up on stage.
You gave him the award. Beautiful.
Yeah.
It might have been you. He said, "Oh, did you do a presentation to him?" So he's told me he's just taken on Realtor, right? He's just taken it on. I said to him, "Oh, that's interesting." I said, "What prompted you?" He says, "Oh, look, I had a look at it, and it's where I've got to be now. I've got to have it all under the one ecosystem. I've got to have everything intertwined, working with my CRM system." He's obsessed with the ability of pitch integrates with his CRM system, which I think is Agent Box. He said to me, "Luke, do you have a Luke that works at Realtor in Melbourne?"
We do.
Oh, Luke.
He's one of our auctioneers and account director ninjas.
Okay, so he did a presentation to him on thing, and he said to me, the other thing he said to me, he says, now's the time to do it. As we get into this changing market, got to look at a competitive advantage, got a little bit more time this winter to get my infrastructure right. So Lee, as we finish off here, of course, we bring you these sessions once a month. Of course, I've got a relationship with Realtair. Lee is part of Realtair, and the reach out, if you want to get, whether it's pitch, whether it's sign, whether it's sell, whatever it is, they reach out to, what's the best thing? Again, realtair.com.au, is that the best way?
Realtair.com, and you can go on there and book a demonstration, and one of our team will take you through it. And we've also got our live support center here in Australia, which is 1300 367 412. That was 1300 367 412. We've got webinars going all the time, especially on the digital sale. And, Tom, final comments here, because people worry about tech and technique. And I think this week has been interesting for me. I've had 4 over $3 million performers reach out, one above 5, to ask a question on something. And I said, that's interesting you're asking that. What's going on? Oh, I've been doing it this way for a long time and I'm starting to see things happen out there. And I go, very easy to get out of step. Do you even know what this is? No, I don't. Okay. And these are such talented people, but we all have a responsibility to keep up to date with what's going on out there. And I think a time sale is going to be the hottest thing on the market in the next 6 months, because it's a new conversation. When I was up north last week, there's a stack of stock that hasn't moved. And I said, okay, it hasn't moved. You've reduced it 7 times. What are you going to do? Don't know what to do. Why don't we try a time sale? Haven't done one. Perfect time to do it then. But you've got nothing to lose now, but you've got a new conversation with the owner that you could do that. And I think, when you look at pitch, sign, and sell, that's our platform. But what does that mean? I've got a sequence for prospecting and winning business. And then I've got a sequence for getting stuff signed. And then none of us get to do anything in this world unless we sell it. And I think in the past, it's like, everything sells, it doesn't matter. That's changed. It doesn't just sell. A great agent's going to have to make it sell. And seeing people register, follow a property, this could be the most exciting time in the next 5 years of real estate, that you do gain control, but use this change of market to change your thinking. And, these tips today that we brought up, you could just use that as your little game-changing plan over the next 6 months to progress yourself as an agent.
Beautifully said, Lee. And that word opportunity. You got to forget what you lost and you got to look at what you gained. You got to forget about your complaints and focus on what you're grateful for. And you got to, forget about who you were, and you got to start focusing on who you can be. And who you can be is that you can be this great high-tech, high-touch agent that looks at having, particularly, and I know what you're talking about, Lee. I know the typical agent, they write decent numbers and life's great. And, you don't have to change anything until there's a few headwinds coming, right? And when there's headwinds coming, all of a sudden, people start saying, okay, there's a possibility I might be earning less money in the next 12 months here from what I can see. I better have a look at how I'm going to grab some market share, how I'm going to work more intelligently, or how I potentially might write the same amount of money with less overheads. That's the other thing that people are looking at, Lee. But Lee, absolute pleasure. We always, you put 2 trainers together, we could actually, this 45-minute session could have become 3 hours and 45 minutes, Tom, I got to say, I've loved doing these with you. The coach to coach things, because for both of us, we usually coach to agent. Yeah. And you're interviewing an agent, but to bounce off these things with you, it's been an absolute pleasure and something we should have done a long time ago. Absolutely. The problem, of course, Lee, and it hasn't happened with these sessions, because what we try and do is enhance what we're saying to each other. Sometimes I think, and I have seen it on videos and audios, you get a couple of trainers together and one says, oh, but I can do that better than you. And then the other one says, do better than you, right? And then you end up having a competition instead of a training session, right? And this has been more than a training session. It's also been letting you know that Realtair, they want to talk to you. We think they're a great organization, and we actually pepper these sessions with a lot of education. I reckon, Lee, 45 minutes here, surely those 5 concepts, if you walked away and said, okay, bang, let's start executing. Absolute pleasure, Lee. Stay well. I'll see you next month or the month after. Everyone signing off. Thank you for joining in. Really appreciate it. Those on Facebook, those on Zoom as well. Thank you. Stay well.